first time I met Lance was on the 1993 tour.
It's your first tour, you're 21 years old, you're the youngest rider in the race. What are you hoping to accomplish?
I want to finish. A stage winner too. I mean, that would be awesome.
He had this will to succeed. You know, he said to me at one point in the interview, he said, you know, the team bosses tell me I'm here to learn because I'm a first-year pro. I ain't here to learn. I'm here to win. I'm here to do something. And I'm thinking, wow, this kid means business.
I just love to ride my bike.
He became the third youngest guy to win the World Championship road race. An astonishing victory in Oslo. He really rode superbly well. He became this superstar at the end of his first season. And they were the kind of races I thought he could win, the one-day races. And so that means if you become world champion in cycling, you wear the coveted rainbow jersey. In that famous Flesh Wallon race, what you've got here is a one-day classic that should have suited Lance really well. He was on really good form on this day. And 3 guys from the same team being kind of coached, stroked, medicated by Dr. Michele Ferrari break away. Lance tries to get across, he's very strong, but he can't. They finish first, second and third in a major one-day classic. And Lance thinks, you know what, this isn't right. These guys didn't do that without the assistance of the drug that was the rage at the time, EPO. Dr. Ferrari was interviewed and the journalist asked him about EPO. And Ferrari said something to the effect of, you know, I don't see EPO as a great problem. He said, and one of the journalists said, but it's dangerous. And he said, it's no more dangerous than 10 litres of orange juice. And in a way, Ferrari was condoning the use of EPO. And if you were Lance Armstrong, you were saying, you know what? I didn't start this, but these guys are doing EPO, and if we're going to have any chance, we've got to do exactly the same.
I'm Lance Armstrong.
I know who you are.
Hi. I want to be like one of your guys. I want to be on whatever program they're on.
If you were Michele Ferrari, you were like Victor Frankenstein. You were looking to create a monster. And Lance was the perfect guy, because he's going to Michele Ferrari and he's saying, you ask me to do whatever it takes. I tell you, I will do it. And I will do it with more conviction and more dedication than anybody out there.
What matters to you, Lance?
Winning.
Anything else?
Love my mom.
More than winning?
They brought in a law that said, okay, we know you're using EPO. We don't have a means of testing it. But what EPO does is that it generates the production of red cells in your blood. And what the UCI were saying is that when your percentage of red cells gets over 50, we're not going to let you race because that's getting dangerous. And we know that's created by EPO, but we can't prove you've taken EPO because we don't have a test for EPO. They then take their hematocrit right up to 49.5, and that difference completely changes the game. You can now do things in the mountains especially that you couldn't dream of doing. The efforts you make don't take nearly as much out of you because you've got all these red cells helping you along the way.
Now it's time to go.
Time to go then, now.
And remember now, in the Tour de France, Lance had ridden it 4 times. We'd never seen him in the elite group in the mountains. We'd never seen him compete with the big guys in the mountains. And on that day to Sestriere, Lance, not only did he ride with the big guys, but at the end he rode away from them and won on his own. And I was in the press room that day, and lots of people were looking and saying, wow, Lance is blooming strong. And some other people were looking and saying, come on, get real. That isn't real. It's a joke now. They're asking us to believe this. It's a joke. And I definitely was one of those who felt, this is not real. I don't believe this. When he won that first prologue, he was asked, well, come on, Lance, you know, last year we had the Tour de Farce. We had all the drugs being found everywhere. What do you think about cycling now? And Lance looked with this kind of sensorial look and said, Okay, cycling's changed and journalists have to fall in love with the race again. You guys have to realise that the people who are winning stages and leading this race are great champions. And you've got to report it in that way. And I just felt, no way, man. You know, we've seen what we saw last year. The one thing we've got to hold on to now is our skepticism.
Because I have never tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs.
See, there's this pressure to acknowledge this as a great story, because on the surface, it was a great story. Everybody loved the fact that somebody who 2 years before was stricken with the worst form of testicular cancer should now be winning the Tour de France. It was just the most feel-good story maybe we'd ever known in sport. But by the time the last Sunday of the Tour de France came, early in that week, I spoke to my boss and I said, look, I don't believe this guy is clean and I can't write with any enthusiasm about his victory. And we wrote a story in the Sunday Times. Today, guy from Texas is going to ride down the Champs-Élysées in the yellow jersey of the Tour de France winner. I said, there are times when it's right to applaud, but there are also times when it's right to keep your arms down by your side and do nothing. Because in this case, the need for an inquiry is overwhelming. And of all the pieces I've ever written in 35 years now as a journalist, the most negative reaction I ever got to a piece was the reaction to that. I got a message from a journalist friend of mine who said, look, people have seen that you're making lots of, inquiries about Lance Armstrong, you're asking questions, you're clearly skeptical. Well, there's a woman who'd like to speak to you. And that was Betsy Andreu. I got in touch with Betsy.
Hello?
Betsy Andreu?
Speaking.
And for the following 10 years, she became a fantastic source of inspiration to me. She had a desire to see the truth come out that I don't think any other person in this whole story could match or even come near matching. She was a fantastic motivator, if you like. She was tireless and she was effective because she's bright, she's strong, she's passionate, and I think if Lance were doing this all over again, he wouldn't be picking a fight with Betsy Andreu because she was formidable.
I mean, it's just this mythic, perfect story.
Yes.
And it wasn't true.
It's like Lance and his story has become a signpost, cast in stone on the kind of journey of sport. And the signpost says, this way we must never go again. We must never believe that winning at any cost is acceptable. This is the story that says Lance and the people around him went too far. And although it was horrendous in terms of the way he treated the people who tried to say it was wrong, it was good that the deceit and the fraud was uncovered and people could understand in the end what the story was all about.